Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Ord. We are talking 24/7 Sports has a New Year's Six prediction. We are going to break it down. We can start with, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with the college football playoff teams, or do you want to start with the, outside New Year's Six bowls?
Let's work our way up.
All right, so they got LSU and USC in the Cotton Bowl. Listen, they have LSU, Georgia, and Alabama from the SEC making it. I think everyone has those three teams as the three teams to beat. I actually don't disagree with this. Listen, I've said this before as an LSU fan. I think LSU coming into the season is a little bit overhyped. We'll see. I just don't know about the depth, especially on the defensive side of the ball. On the secondary, I think you're playing in the West. You got FSU to start the season, and then you have to basically run the table in your regular season schedule, because if you lose to Georgia in the SEC championship, which they will undoubtedly be underdogs to, you're not going to get into the playoffs. So that's kind of my thing with LSU. I think it's an extremely tough road. You go at Alabama, you got a neutral site game with Florida State, and you got a bunch of other games where any loss that you trip up in the SEC West, you're pretty much on the outside looking in, unless you can beat Georgia in the SEC championship, which I think we would both say, I wouldn't say a long shot, but that's not something we're going to be favored in. I can guarantee you that.
No, I don't disagree. I think, I can be realistic. I get a couple of drinks in me. I'll be a little silly, but realistically, LSU
beat FSU by LSU beats FSU by 40. We might have a different tone in a couple weeks.
I still just don't believe that, only because of the depth thing that you talked about. And I've talked about this ad nauseum, that like UGA and Bama, they've been recruiting at this level for several years now, where like their backups aren't backups everywhere else in the country. They're starting everywhere else in the country, where LSU with Brian Kelly is just now building that foundation. Like last year's team was half the starters were transfers, and we have several starters this year that are transfers. And I'm not, the transfer portal is absolutely necessary for tweaking the roster, but last year it made LSU's roster. You don't want to do that. You want your recruits to fill the big voids. And when you have, an unforeseen injury or hole or void, whatever it is, then you use the transfer portal. LSU's not quite there yet. I do think they will be very, very soon. What is interesting, though, is USC is in the Cotton Bowl. First of all, that would be a hell of a matchup and a preview for the following year, 2024 season opener, or we assume it'll be the season opener, week 1 or week 2 in Vegas, USC, LSU, Lincoln Ryan, Brian Kelly, the two hottest hires of last year's cycle. Would be absolutely stunning. But that also means they didn't win the Pac-12. So they lost to Utah. They lost somewhere down the road. So that is an interesting one.
Florida State, Penn State. I will say this. They have the other two Big Ten teams in the college football playoff before we get to them. Penn State's on the outside looking in. I think we both kind of agreed that's probably what's going to happen. I think the interesting thing is Clemson's not in any of this. I actually have Clemson as a playoff team. I think Clemson's going to surprise some people, and more than surprise some people, they play in the ACC. They get Florida State at home, so that's really their big game.
But they're believing
on the table.
Yeah, they're believing in Florida State, because Florida State doesn't have an easy run. They have Clemson at Clemson, Florida, Miami, LSU. That's tough. That's tough sledding right there. So obviously,
and I'm not yet there on the FSU hype train yet. I'm not there. I'm not there yet. I think last year very well could be one of those years where you show up, kind of like Texas has done over the last few years. They show up, they win a big game, they win a bunch of games. We're back, baby. Show me 2 years in a row. And a lot will depend on this LSU Florida State game. That will tell us a lot that we need to know about both teams, because I think both of those teams have a lot of question marks, a ton of talent, a lot of question marks about how they can be as a national championship contender. Notre Dame, Oregon gets the Fiesta Bowl. I think this is a good one. I think Notre Dame, I think we both are pretty high on Notre Dame. I think Freeman is a fantastic coach. Like you said before, I don't think they could have had an easier transition from Brian Kelly, your winningest coach in program history, kind of leaving in the middle of the night. But we have this guy, Marcus Freeman, who was one of the hottest head coaching commodities. He steps in. I believe in them. Oregon, I think we both believe in Dan Lanning. Bo Nix had a fantastic year last year. They're playing in the Pac-12. But I think the Pac-12 is low-key, like in terms of depth, the second best conference. Oregon State, Oregon, Washington, Utah, USC. Like that's five teams in the top 20 of the preseason.
I said that the Big Ten is so top heavy. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, but the rest leaves so much to be desired. I said that a couple weeks ago, and Jake couldn't believe it. I was like, Pac-12 is, and there was a lot of things that could go wrong for those Pac-12 teams that you just said. But I agree, the Pac-12 is strong. It's a shame it's disbanding. I love the Pac-12. It just sucks.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you hate to see like things that you like go, and then the new things are so cool that you're just like, whatever. Like, like the Big 12 we talked about, the new Big 12 is going to be sick. Yep. Obviously, the SEC is going to be incredible. The Big 10's weird, but it's going to be cool. Like, why is USC and UCLA and all these teams weird? It is weird, but it's going to be cool. Tulane and Alabama are playing in the Peach Bowl here in Atlanta. Can't really disagree there. I mean, if Alabama isn't a New Year's Six Bowl, I think we'd be shocked. And then Tulane is going to be they are a huge favorite to be that group of 5 team that gets in. I mean, they have a lot of returning talent, really good coach, really good team. And I mean, I think if we're talking about favorites, if this was an actual conference to win a conference, they would be one of the bigger favorites, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And this could be a similar situation because Alabama's national championship or bust. Don't get it twisted. And they absolutely have the ability to lose a bowl game like this because they're like, well, we didn't make it in the playoff. It doesn't really matter. That's just how Alabama thinks. That's how their fans think. And even though the players won't admit it, that's how they think in the back of their mind. And I just can't help but think, let me just say this. Oh, yeah, first time in, 100 years, Tulane and LSU have been in the preseason top 25 of the AP poll. Just imagine if that was a New Year's Six Bowl, LSU, Tulane. Oh,
that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't think they would pass that up. I really agree. I don't think they would pass that up. Having that matchup when the two teams in state, LSU obviously runs the state. Tulane's got they're an up and coming program.
If the Sugar
I
Bowl
don't know if they would pass that up because that would do numbers. That would do numbers.
If the Sugar Bowl wasn't one of the semifinal games and that was just one of the other New Year's Six, that place would be unreal. One of the best college football games ever.
It wouldn't be like a rivalry. It would be a fun atmosphere. Like it'd
be like a celebration.
Yeah, it would be like congrats Tulane. Like we still had a good season.
But now you're coming to the buzzsaw.
Yeah, yeah. But dude, I think that would be awesome. I think that'd be awesome. Now let's get to the college football playoff teams. I mean, listen, I don't disagree with either of these. And honestly, if this was the college football playoffs, I would be pumped. Like if you had Texas and Ohio State, first of all, Texas and Ohio State, a Big 12, Big 10 matchup in the Rose Bowl, that gets me excited right there. That gets me excited. That would be a legendary matchup. And I think two teams that would match up stylistically and be a really, really fun game.
In terms of numbers, that might be the most watched semifinal game ever. Two of the biggest brands. Texas is the biggest brand in college football. Yes, they haven't been good, but in terms of, they have their own network. And though it may be a failure to some people, they do numbers. And Ohio State is as big as brand as any in college football. That would be incredible. The backdrop of college football, the Rose Bowl. Goodness gracious. I get goosebumps.
And I'm ready for Texas to be back. I think I speak for all college football fans. Like, we make fun of them for not getting back, and we like to crap on them for saying they're back too early. But I think I speak for everybody. Like, we're waiting. It's like that. It's like what is that, Caddyshack? Well, we're waiting. Like, come on. Like, come join the party. Like, we're ready to have you here. And I think them with Sarkisian, they're moving in the right direction. Whether they make the playoff or not, getting to the SEC is going to be big for them. It's a matter of time to me. I don't know if it's this year, but it's going to hinge on that Alabama game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. That Alabama game is going to decide their season in Tuscaloosa. And I almost thought about going it, but we have those Falcons tickets. So I had to cancel that. Last one, Georgia, Michigan. I think these are the two best teams in the country. I guess the way they have this working out is Georgia running the table, Michigan losing to Ohio State. That's kind of what it seems like. And Texas being that 2-3 matchup. I'm just spitballing here. But the Sugar Bowl, I mean, Georgia going down to New Orleans, that Michigan, that would be fantastic. I mean, fantastic football. I know Michigan fans want that revenge because they got embarrassed a couple years ago. I know they feel like they let one slip away against TCU and it should have been them in the national championship. They're ready. They want this matchup. You just watch Swamp Kings. Remember, they talk about how the hungriness and how like Remember, Jim Harbaugh even said, what's the motto this year? Beat Georgia. Like, there's no like, and I didn't really love that he said that because you got Ohio State. Now you're giving them bulletin board material. But let's not, like, they have their eyes on the prize. And I don't hate that. And if this matchup comes to fruition, there won't be a hungrier team to play that Georgia team that thinks they're ready. They're now back-to-back Big Ten championships, back-to-back college football playoffs. They think they've let them slip away. This is the best team they've had under Harbaugh. They got to think Georgia's maybe a little vulnerable with all those pieces, even though we don't think so. I think this college football playoff, if it happens, if it comes to fruition, obviously I would love LSU there. This would be a great one, though. Like, from a viewer's perspective, I don't think any complaints.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But this is also one of those semifinal games that's actually the championship. Like, Georgia, Michigan is actually the championship. Those are the two best teams. Now, I see what they're saying, though, that Ohio State beats them in the Big Ten championship, or beats them and then goes to the Big Ten championship. Excuse me. And then who throttles whoever comes out the other side, Wisconsin or whoever the heck it is, with 3 losses. But yeah, this is just an incredible matchup in terms of brands too. Like, no offense to TCU or their fans, y'all had a great season. Y'all's brand is nothing. Like, it really is nothing comparatively to what we just said. Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Michigan. Those are 4 of the 6 biggest brands in college football right now. I mean, this would be so good for the networks. They would be drooling over themselves at the thought of the numbers that these would do. It would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I am here for all of this. I think these are all great matchups. Obviously, as I said, we'd love LSU to get in there, but these are 4 great teams. I'd love Texas to be back, Ohio State, Michigan. I think it would be perfect. Coming up after the break, Alex, you just did a 53-man roster projection. You updated it. We're going to talk a little bit about it ahead of the 3rd preseason game.